Officer Marcus Thompson adjusted his utility belt as he stepped out of his patrol car into the warm September morning. The sun cast long shadows across the parking lot of Riverside Elementary School, and the familiar sounds of children's laughter drifted through the open windows. It was 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Marcus was running his usual community outreach program, something he'd done hundreds of times over his 12 years with the Portland Police Department. "Ready, boy?" Marcus asked, opening the back door of the K9 unit vehicle. Rex, his 5-year-old German Shepherd partner, jumped out with the practiced grace of a seasoned professional. The dog's coat gleamed in the sunlight, his intelligent brown eyes scanning the surroundings with the vigilance that had made him one of the department's most decorated K9 officers. Together, they'd found missing hikers, located hidden drugs and trafficking busts, and even tracked down a kidnapped teenager 2 years ago. Rex wasn't just a dog. He was Marcus's partner, his friend, and a hero in his own right. "Officer Thompson, you're here." Principal Morrison rushed out of the main entrance, her face beaming with excitement. "The kids have been talking about Rex's visit all week. 3rd grade is absolutely buzzing." Marcus smiled and shook her hand. "Happy to be here, Principal Morrison. Rex loves kids almost as much as he loves finding bad guys, don't you, Rex?" The dog's tail wagged in response, and several teachers who had gathered near the entrance laughed warmly. These school visits were Marcus's favorite part of the job. After dealing with the darker side of humanity, the violence, the drugs, the domestic calls that left him feeling hollow, spending time with innocent, excited children reminded him why he'd become a police officer in the first place. "We've set up in the gymnasium," Principal Morrison explained as they walked through the hallway. "But the weather is so beautiful, I thought maybe you could do a demonstration outside on the playground afterward." "Sounds perfect," Marcus agreed. As they approached the gym, Marcus could hear the excited chatter of over 100 third graders waiting inside. But then something strange happened, something that would replay in Marcus's mind 1,000 times in the weeks to come. Rex stopped walking. The German Shepherd planted his feet firmly on the polished floor, his ears suddenly perking up at full attention. His head swiveled toward the left, toward the hallway that led to the playground exit. "Rex, heel," Marcus commanded, giving a gentle tug on the leash. But Rex didn't move. In 3 years of partnership, the dog had never disobeyed a direct command. Never. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What's wrong with him?" Principal Morrison asked, concern creeping into her voice. I don't know," Marcus admitted, kneeling beside his partner. "Rex, what is it, boy?" The dog whined, a low, urgent sound that Marcus had only heard once before, during a search and rescue mission when they'd found an elderly man trapped in a collapsed building. It was Rex's distress signal, the sound that meant something was very, very wrong. "Maybe we should," Principal Morrison began, but she didn't get to finish. Rex pulled forward with such force that the leash nearly slipped from Marcus's hand. The dog was moving with purpose, practically dragging Marcus down the hallway toward the playground exit. Teachers scattered as the 90-pound German Shepherd charged past them, his focus locked on something only he could sense. "Rex, stop," Marcus shouted, his training warring with his trust in his partner. Should he regain control, or should he trust that Rex knew something he didn't? He chose trust. They burst through the double doors onto the playground, where a few students sat scattered across the benches during their free period. The morning sun was bright, almost blinding after the dimness of the hallway. Marcus's eyes adjusted, scanning the area for whatever had triggered Rex's behavior. Was there a threat? A weapon? Something dangerous that the dog had detected? Then he saw her. In the far corner of the playground, sitting alone on a weather-worn wooden bench beneath an old oak tree, was the smallest child Marcus had ever seen. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old, with light brown hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She wore a faded purple t-shirt that was 2 sizes too big and jeans with holes in the knees. But it wasn't her clothes that made Marcus's heart sink. It was her posture. The little girl sat hunched over, her shoulders curved inward as if trying to make herself disappear. Her hands were clenched into tiny fists on her lap, and her eyes, those hollow, distant eyes, stared at the ground with an expression no child should ever wear. She looked like someone who had given up on the world, like someone who had learned that hopping for better only led to more pain. Marcus had seen that look before, too many times, on domestic violence calls, on child welfare checks, on the faces of victims who had stopped believing that anyone would help them. Rex wasn't running toward a threat. He was running toward someone who desperately needed saving. The German Shepherd crossed the playground in seconds, his powerful legs carrying him straight to the little girl. Marcus jogged behind, his mind racing through protocols and procedures, trying to understand what was happening. "Rex, slow," Marcus started to say, but the words died in his throat. The dog stopped directly in front of the child, his entire body language shifting from urgent to impossibly gentle. Rex, the same dog who could take down armed suspects, who had bitten through thick protective sleeves during training, who was trained to be a weapon when necessary, carefully, slowly, placed his large head on the little girl's lap. And then Rex did something Marcus had never witnessed in 3 years of partnership. The German Shepherd began to cry. Not bark, not whine, cry. Deep, mournful sounds emerged from the dog's throat, sounds filled with an emotion that seemed almost human. Tears actually welled up in Rex's brown eyes as he pressed his head more firmly against the child, as if trying to absorb her pain. The little girl's clenched fists slowly opened. Her small, trembling hands reached out and touched Rex's fur, tentatively at first, then with growing desperation. She wrapped her thin arms around the dog's thick neck and buried her face in his coat. And then she began to sob. Not the crying of a child who'd skinned her knee or lost a toy. This was the soul-deep weeping of someone who had been holding back an ocean of pain. Her tiny body shook with the force of it, and Rex held perfectly still, letting her tears soak into his fur, his own quiet whimpers matching hers. Marcus stood frozen, his hand still holding the leash, watching something he couldn't quite explain but inherently understood. Principal Morrison had followed them outside, along with several teachers, and they all stood in stunned silence. Then, so quietly that Marcus almost missed it, the little girl whispered something into Rex's ear. The dog's ear twitched, and his crying intensified for just a moment before settling into a low, comforting rumble. Mrs. Chen, the school counselor Marcus recognized from previous visits, approached slowly, her face pale. "Officer Thompson," she whispered, her voice shaking. "That's Emma Patterson. We've been worried about her." Marcus looked down at Rex, who had positioned himself like a protective barrier around the trembling child, and felt his police instincts kick into high gear. This wasn't just a friendly school visit anymore. Something was terribly wrong, and somehow, Rex had known it the moment they'd entered the building. "Tell me everything," Marcus said quietly. His eyes never leaving the little girl who clung to his partner like Rex was the only safe thing left in her world. Because in that moment, Marcus realized that this was exactly what Rex was, Emma's lifeline, her protector, the one who had heard what she couldn't say out loud. And this was only the beginning. Mrs. Linda Chen had been a school counselor for 17 years, and in that time, she'd learned to recognize the signs of a child in crisis. But Emma Patterson had been different, disturbingly different. As she stood on the playground watching Officer Thompson's K-9 partner refuse to leave the little girl's side, Linda's hands trembled as she clutched her notebook to her chest. "Her name is Emma Patterson," Linda began, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's 6 years old in Mrs. Rodriguez's first-grade class, and Officer Thompson, I think we've been failing her." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his eyes on Emma, who still had her face buried in Rex's fur. The dog hadn't moved an inch, his muscular body forming a protective shield around the child. "Tell me everything, Mrs. Chen. Start from the beginning." Linda took a shaky breath. 3 months ago, Emma was. She was like sunshine, officer. Always the first one to raise her hand in class, always helping other kids tie their shoes or find their lunch boxes. She had this laugh that you could hear all the way down the hallway, this pure, joyful sound that made everyone smile. Marcus noted the past tense. "About 8 weeks ago, everything changed overnight," Linda continued, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Emma came to school on a Monday morning and it was like someone had flipped a switch. She wouldn't speak unless directly asked a question, and even then her answers were one word: yes, no, okay. She stopped playing with other children during recess. She stopped eating her lunch. She just disappeared inside herself." Principal Morrison joined them, having sent the other teachers back inside to manage the students waiting in the gymnasium. "We documented everything," she added quietly. "The behavioral changes, the withdrawn affect, the way she flinches when someone approaches her too quickly." "Flinches?" Marcus's voice hardened. He'd heard enough of these stories to know where this might be heading. "Yes," Linda said, pulling out her phone and scrolling through photos. "And then there were the bruises." She held up the phone, showing Marcus a series of photographs taken over the past several weeks. Emma's arms bearing circular marks, finger-shaped bruises that made Marcus's blood run cold. Another photo showed bruising on her upper arm in the distinct pattern of an adult's grip. A third showed what looked like a healing bruise on her shoulder blade, captured when Emma's shirt had shifted during gym class. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "Why hasn't CPS been called?" Linda's face flushed with shame. "We called her mother twice. Sarah Patterson, she's a single mom, works 2 jobs. Both times she came in, she seemed genuinely surprised by our concerns. She said Emma had become clumsy, that she was going through a phase. The bruises. Sarah said Emma had started climbing trees at a neighbor's house, that she'd fallen off her bike, that she'd bumped into furniture." "Classic excuses," Marcus said, his voice tight. "We know," Principal Morrison admitted. "We were planning to file a formal report with Child Protective Services this week. We've been documenting everything, building a case. But we wanted to be certain, to have enough evidence that CPS would actually investigate rather than just do a cursory check and close the case." Marcus understood the frustration. He'd seen too many cases where CPS was so overwhelmed that legitimate concerns fell through the cracks. But looking at Emma now, still clutching Rex like the dog, was the only thing keeping her from drowning. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. How many days had this child suffered while adults gathered paperwork? "Has she said anything?" Marcus asked. "Anything at all about what's happening at home?" "Nothing," Linda said, her voice breaking. "That's the thing, Officer Thompson. We've tried everything. I've spent hours with her in my office, using play therapy, art therapy, just trying to get her to open up. She draws pictures, but they're always the same: dark houses with no windows, stick figures with no faces, storms and rain. When I ask her about them, she just shrugs." "What about her father?" "Not in the picture," Principal Morrison answered. "According to our records, Sarah has been raising Emma alone since birth. No father listed on any documentation." Marcus watched as Rex shifted slightly, adjusting his position so that Emma could lean more comfortably against him. The dog's eyes were alert but soft, his breathing slow and deliberate. All the behaviors Marcus had seen Rex display during therapy sessions at the children's hospital, when they visited young patients who needed comfort. But this was different. Rex had never sought out a child before, never broken protocol, never disobeyed a command. It was as if the dog had sensed something that even the trained adults around Emma had missed, or maybe something they'd seen but hadn't known how to reach. "I need to talk to her," Marcus said quietly. "Officer, I'm not sure," Principal Morrison began, but Linda put a hand on her arm. Look at them, Linda said, nodding toward Emma and Rex. This is the first time in 2 months that I've seen Emma show any emotion at all. If anyone can get through to her right now, it might be him. Marcus nodded slowly and approached Emma carefully, making sure his footsteps were audible so he wouldn't startle her. He knelt down about 3 feet away, giving her space but staying close enough to talk. "Hi there," he said softly. "My name is Officer Marcus. This guy here," he gestured to Rex, "is my partner, Rex. I think he really likes you." Emma's sobs had quieted to soft hiccups, but she didn't lift her head from Rex's fur. Her small hands gripped tighter, as if afraid the dog might leave. "Rex is pretty special," Marcus continued, keeping his voice gentle and low. "He's helped a lot of people over the years. He once found a little boy who got lost in the woods. Another time he helped catch some bad guys who were doing bad things. And you know what? In all the time I've known Rex, I've never seen him act the way he's acting right now." Emma's grip loosened slightly. Marcus could see one of her eyes peeking out from behind Rex's neck, watching him warily. "Rex doesn't usually pick favorites," Marcus said, "but I think you might be special to him. I think maybe he knows you need a friend right now." Emma's voice, when it finally came, was so small that Marcus had to lean forward to hear it. He's not scared of me." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. "Scared of you? Sweetheart, why would anyone be scared of you?" But Emma had gone quiet again, burying her face back in Rex's fur. The dog made a low, rumbling sound, almost like a purr, that seemed to comfort her. Marcus glanced back at Linda and Principal Morrison, who were watching with expressions of hope and heartbreak mixed together. He knew he needed to tread carefully here. Push too hard and Emma might shut down completely. But he also knew that time was critical. Whatever was happening to this child, it needed to stop now. "Emma," Marcus said gently, "Rex told me something just now. Do you want to know what he said?" The little girl's head turned slightly, not much, but enough that Marcus could see her profile. She nodded almost imperceptibly. "He told me that you're very brave," Marcus said. "He said that you've been carrying a big secret all by yourself, and that's a really heavy thing for someone as small as you to carry alone. And he wanted me to tell you that maybe you don't have to carry it alone anymore." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Emma's hands loosened their death grip on Rex's fur. She sat up slightly, her tear-stained face finally visible. Her eyes, those heartbreaking, hollow eyes, met Marcus's gaze. "Rex said that," she whispered. "He did," Marcus confirmed, even though it was a lie told in service of the truth. "And Rex doesn't lie. He's a very honest dog." Emma looked down at Rex, who tilted his head up to gaze at her with those impossibly understanding eyes. Then, so quietly that Marcus almost missed it, Emma whispered, "I told Rex my secret. I told him what happens at home when the yelling starts." Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. "And what did Rex say?" Emma's lower lip trembled. He said he believes me, and that help is coming." The little girl's eyes filled with fresh tears, but this time they seemed different. Not tears of despair, but tears of hope mixed with fear. Hope that maybe, finally, someone would listen. Fear that maybe she was wrong to hope at all. "Emma," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion, "Rex is right. Help is here. And we're not going anywhere until we make sure you're safe. I promise you that." Rex whimpered softly and licked Emma's hand, as if sealing the promise himself. And in that moment, watching a broken little girl cling to a dog who refused to abandon her, Marcus made a silent vow. Whatever it took, whoever he had to face, he would not fail this child. The impossible connection between Rex and Emma had opened a door that weeks of professional counseling couldn't breach. Now Marcus just had to make sure that door led somewhere safe. Marcus sat in his patrol car outside Riverside Elementary, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Rex sat in the back seat, unusually quiet, his dark eyes fixed on the school building they just left. It had taken 45 minutes to gently separate Emma from the dog, and even then, the little girl had only agreed to return to class when Marcus promised, sworn on his badge, that he and Rex would see her again soon. "What did you sense in there, boy?" Marcus asked, glancing at his partner in the rearview mirror. "What did she tell you that she couldn't tell anyone else?" Rex's ears twitched, and he released a soft whine that seemed to carry the weight of Emma's unspoken pain. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed his supervisor, Sergeant Patricia Okonkwo. She answered on the second ring, her voice brisk and professional. "Thompson, how'd the school visit go?" "Sarge, I need approval for a welfare check," Marcus said without preamble. 6-year-old female, Emma Patterson. Documented behavioral changes, visible bruising, and complete emotional shutdown. The school's been documenting for weeks, but nobody's called it in yet. There was a pause. Nobody's called it in. What the hell have they been waiting for? They wanted to build a stronger case before involving CPS, Marcus explained, frustration bleeding into his voice. Worried it would get buried in the system. "And what makes you think we won't just add it to the pile?" Patricia asked, but her tone had softened. She knew Marcus well enough to understand that he wouldn't be calling if it wasn't serious. "Rex," Marcus said simply. "Your dog." "Sarge, in 3 years, Rex has never disobeyed a direct command. Never. Today he broke away from me in the middle of a school assembly and ran straight to this little girl. He refused to leave her side. He was crying, Patricia, actually crying. And the kid told him something she hasn't told anyone else." Sergeant Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. "You think the dog knows something we don't?" "I think the dog sensed something every adult around this child has been too slow to act on," Marcus said. "I need to do a welfare check today. This afternoon. I'm not letting this kid go home to whatever's waiting for her without eyes on the situation." "Approved," Patricia said immediately. "Take Rex with you, document everything, and Thompson, trust your gut on this one." "Always do, Sarge." 2 hours later, Marcus stood outside apartment 2B in the Meadowbrook Estates complex, a worn-down building on the east side of Portland, where the paint peeled from the walls and the hallway smelled of old cooking oil and mildew. He could hear a television playing loudly inside, some daytime talk show host's voice echoing through the thin door. Marcus knocked firmly. "Portland Police, welfare check." The television volume dropped, and he heard footsteps approaching, light, hurried steps. The door opened to reveal a woman in her late 20s with dark circles under her eyes and hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail. She wore scrubs, the kind nurses or medical assistants wore, and there was a coffee stain on her chest that looked recent. "Yes," she asked, her voice carrying exhaustion but not hostility. "Is Emma okay? Did something happen at school?" "Are you Sarah Patterson?" Marcus asked, keeping his tone professional but not aggressive. I'm Emma's mother." Sarah's eyes dropped to Rex and a flicker of concern crossed her face. "Is that a police dog? Officer, what's going on? You're scaring me." "Ma'am, I'm Officer Thompson. This is Rex. We were at Emma's school today for a community outreach program, and there were some concerns raised about your daughter's well-being. I'd like to ask you a few questions if that's all right. May we come in?" Sarah hesitated, her hand gripping the doorframe. "Concerns? What kind of concerns? Emma's fine, she's been going through a phase lately, adjusting to some changes at home." "What kind of changes?" Marcus asked gently. Before Sarah could answer, a voice called out from deeper in the apartment. "Sarah, who's at the door? Is it that landlord asshole again?" Marcus's instincts fired immediately. Male voice. Aggressive tone. Sarah's body language had just shifted, her shoulders tensed, her breathing quickened slightly. These were tells Marcus had learned to recognize in his years of responding to domestic calls. It's a police officer, Derek," Sarah called back, her voice artificially bright. "About Emma's school, nothing serious." Heavy footsteps approached, and a man appeared behind Sarah, tall, maybe 6'2", with a muscular build that suggested he worked construction or manual labor. He had a day's worth of stubble on his jaw and wore a stained white tank top that showed off tattooed arms. His eyes were hard as they assessed Marcus, and his presence seemed to fill the doorway, making Sarah appear even smaller beside him. "Police," Derek said, his voice carrying a challenge. "About Emma, what the kid do now? She's always getting into something, clumsy as hell." Now Marcus understood Emma's bruises weren't from climbing trees or falling off bikes. He'd heard that exact dismissive tone too many times before, the casual diminishment, the implication that the child was the problem. "I'd like to come in and speak with you both about Emma," Marcus said, maintaining his professional demeanor. "It's routine, won't take long." Derek's jaw clenched. "We don't have to let you in without a warrant." "That's true," Marcus acknowledged, "but I'm here as part of a welfare check for your daughter, mister." "I'm not her father," Derek said quickly. "I'm Sarah's boyfriend, been living here about 2 months. 2 months, the exact time frame when Emma's behavior had changed." "Derek, it's fine," Sarah interjected, pulling the door open wider. "We have nothing to hide. Please, officer, come in. I want to help if there's a problem with Emma." Marcus stepped inside, Rex close at his heels. The apartment was small but relatively clean, a cramped living room with a sagging couch, a kitchenette with dishes piled in the sink, and a narrow hallway that presumably led to bedrooms. Children's drawings covered one wall, though Marcus noticed they were all older, brighter pictures. The recent ones Linda Chen had described, the dark houses, the faceless figures, were nowhere to be seen. "Where is Emma now?" Marcus asked. "Still at school," Sarah said, checking her watch. "I pick her up at 3:30. I work the night shift at Providence Hospital. I'm a nursing assistant, so I sleep during the morning and then get Emma in the afternoon. Derek works construction, usually leaves around 6 a.m. "Usually," Marcus noted. "I'm between jobs right now," Derek said, his tone defensive. "Market's slow, been doing odd jobs here and there." So Derek was home alone with Emma in the mornings when Sarah was sleeping after her night shift. Marcus filed that information away. "Officer Thompson," Sarah said, gesturing to the couch, "please sit. Can I get you some water, coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you," Marcus said, but he didn't sit. Instead, he positioned himself where he could see both adults and the hallway. Rex sat beside him, alert and watchful. "Mrs. Patterson." "Ms." Sarah corrected. "I've never been married." "Ms. Patterson, Emma's teachers have noticed some significant behavioral changes over the past 2 months. She's become withdrawn, uncommunicative. She stopped playing with other children, and there have been some physical signs, bruising on her arms and shoulders, that have raised concerns." Sarah's face went pale. "Bruising? I know she's gotten a few bumps lately. She's been so clumsy, officer. Just last week she fell off the jungle gym at the park, and she started climbing this tree in the neighbor's yard even though I've told her not to." "She fell off the jungle gym, huh?" Derek interrupted, his voice carrying a note of irritation. "That what we're telling people now? Kids always in the way, always underfoot. I've told her 100 times to watch where she's going, but does she listen? No. Then she comes crying with bruises like it's someone else's fault." Rex's ears flattened against his head, and a low growl rumbled deep in his chest. Marcus had never heard Rex react this way to someone without cause. The dog's instincts were impeccable. He could sense danger, aggression, threat. "Rex, easy," Marcus commanded, but he understood what his partner was telling him. Derek was the problem. "Mr." Marcus prompted. "Morrison, Derek Morrison." "Mr. Morrison, do you interact with Emma regularly?" "I live here, don't I?" Derek's voice had an edge now. "Kids around. Sometimes she's in the way. I tell her to move, she moves, that's about it." Sarah put a hand on Derek's arm, a placating gesture that Marcus recognized from countless domestic calls. "Derek's been very patient with Emma," she said quickly. It's been an adjustment for everyone having him move in. Emma's not used to having a man around the house. She's been acting out a little." "Acting out how?" Marcus asked. "Just little things," Sarah said, but her voice wavered. "Not listening, talking back sometimes, nothing serious." "Talking back," Derek scoffed. "Kid barely says 2 words most days, just stares at you with those creepy eyes. Honestly, officer, I think the kid might have something wrong with her. Maybe she needs to see a doctor, get some medication or something." Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "Ms. Patterson, I'd like to speak with Emma when she gets home from school. Would that be all right?" "Of course," Sarah said immediately. "Whatever you need. I just want to make sure Emma's okay. If something's wrong, if she's being bullied at school or—" "Nobody's bullying her," Derek cut in. "Kid brings it on herself, being so weird and quiet all the time. Other kids probably don't want to play with her." Rex growled again, louder this time, his body tense. Marcus put a hand on his partner's head, feeling the tension in the dog's muscles. Rex wanted to protect Emma, even though she wasn't here. The dog knew. Somehow, Rex knew exactly who was hurting that little girl. And so did Marcus. Now he just needed Emma to tell him herself. Marcus waited in his patrol car across the street from Meadowbrook Estates, watching the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot. It was 3:45 p.m., and he'd just seen Sarah Patterson's beat-up Honda Civic pull into the lot with Emma in the backseat. Through his binoculars, Marcus could see the little girl's face pressed against the window, her expression blank and distant. Rex stirred in the back seat, sensing they were about to move. The dog had been agitated since they'd left the apartment earlier, packing and whining, behaviors that told Marcus his partner knew they weren't done here yet. "I know, boy," Marcus said quietly. "We're going to help her, I promise." He'd spent the past 2 hours running background checks and making calls. Derek Morrison had a record, nothing that would flag him in a standard rental background check, but enough to paint a picture. 2 domestic disturbance calls in Seattle 3 years ago, charges dropped when the girlfriend refused to testify. A bar fight in Eugene that resulted in probation. An assault charge that was pleaded down to disorderly conduct. The man had a pattern, and Emma had become his latest victim. Marcus gave Sarah 15 minutes to get Emma settled before he knocked on the apartment door again. This time, Sarah answered immediately, her face drawn with worry. "Officer Thompson," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Thank you for coming back. Emma's here. She's very quiet, but she's here." "Is Mr. Morrison home?" Marcus asked. "No," Sarah said quickly. "He went out about an hour ago. Said he needed to clear his head, maybe catch up with some friends. I thought it might be easier to talk with Emma without him here. She seems nervous when he's around." That was an understatement, Marcus thought, but he simply nodded. "That's probably best. Ms. Patterson, with your permission, I'd like to speak with Emma privately. You're welcome to be present, of course, but sometimes children find it easier to talk one-on-one." Sarah hesitated, wringing her hands. "Is Rex going to be there?" "If Emma wants him to be, yes." Then okay. Emma's been asking about the dog since I picked her up. It's the most she's said in weeks." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Officer, please tell me what's going on. I feel like I'm losing my daughter and I don't understand why." Marcus wanted to tell her that her boyfriend was the reason, that she'd invited a predator into her home and her daughter had paid the price. But he needed Emma's testimony first, needed the child to tell her story in her own words. "Let's talk to Emma first," Marcus said gently. "Then we'll figure out what's happening together." Sarah led him to a small bedroom at the end of the hallway, Emma's room, decorated with faded princess stickers on the walls and a twin bed covered with stuffed animals that looked like they'd been loved nearly to pieces. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing her school clothes, her hands folded in her lap. When she saw Rex, her entire face transformed. Rex, the joy in her voice was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The German shepherd pulled forward gently, and Marcus let the leash go slack as Rex padded over to Emma. The dog placed his head on her lap, just as he had at school, and Emma wrapped her arms around his neck like he was her lifeline. "Hi, Emma," Marcus said softly, kneeling down so he was at eye level with her. "Rex told me he really wanted to see you again. He said you're his favorite person he met today." Emma managed a small smile, her fingers buried in Rex's fur. "I missed him." "He missed you too," Marcus said. "Emma, is it okay if I ask you some questions? You're not in any trouble, I just want to make sure you're safe and happy. Can we talk about that?" The little girl's smile faded, and her grip on Rex tightened. She glanced toward the door where her mother stood, uncertainty crossing her face. "Ms. Patterson," Marcus said, "would you mind giving us a few minutes? Sometimes it's easier for kids to talk without a grown-up they know watching. I promise I'll tell you everything Emma says." Sarah looked torn, but she nodded slowly. "Emma, baby, it's okay. Officer Thompson is here to help. Tell him the truth about anything he asks, okay? You won't get in trouble, I promise." After Sarah left, closing the door behind her, the room fell into a heavy silence. Emma stared at the floor, her small body trembling slightly. Rex pressed closer, his warm presence a shield between the frightened child and the world that had hurt her. "Emma," Marcus began, pulling a small stuffed elephant from the collection on her bed, "sometimes it's hard to talk about scary things. But you know what? Rex is really good at keeping people safe when they tell scary stories. He's like a superhero dog." "Is he bulletproof?" Emma whispered, still not meeting his eyes. The question caught Marcus off guard. What 6-year-old asked about bulletproof vests unless they'd heard threats involving guns? "He wears a special vest that keeps him very safe," Marcus said carefully. "Emma, has someone talked about guns around you?" The little girl nodded almost imperceptibly. "Derek has a gun. He showed Mommy. He said if she ever tried to leave him or tell anyone their business, he'd make sure nobody could find her. He said people disappear all the time and nobody looks for them." Marcus felt his blood run cold, but he kept his voice calm and steady. "That must have been very scary to hear." "I was hiding behind the couch," Emma continued, her voice so quiet Marcus had to lean forward to hear. "They didn't know I was there. I was playing hide-and-seek with my dolls, and then they started yelling, and I got scared to come out." "What else did you hear, Emma?" The little girl's eyes finally met his, and the pain Marcus saw there nearly broke him. "He said Mommy was stupid. He said she was lucky someone like him wanted to be with her because nobody else would want a single mom with a bratty kid. He said I was the reason Mommy was so tired all the time, why she had to work so hard. He said I was a burden." "Emma, that's not true." "And then Mommy started crying," Emma rushed on, as if a dam had broken and all the words she'd been holding back for weeks were flooding out. "She said she was sorry, that she didn't mean to make him angry, and he grabbed her arm really hard and she cried out, and I wanted to help her but I was too scared." Tears streamed down Emma's face now, but her voice remained steady, as if she'd rehearsed this testimony 1,000 times in her head. "The next day, Mommy had bruises on her arm just like mine. She wore long sleeves even though it was hot, and when I asked her if she was okay, she said she'd bumped into the kitchen counter. But I knew Derek hurt her just like he hurts me." "How does Derek hurt you, Emma?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice gentle despite the rage building in his chest. "He grabs my arms when I'm in his way," Emma said, rolling up her sleeve to show the healing bruises Marcus had seen in the photographs. "He says I'm always underfoot, always making noise when he's trying to watch TV or sleep. One time I was playing in the living room and I knocked over his beer, and he grabbed me so hard I couldn't move my arm right for 2 days. Mommy thought I'd slept on it wrong." "Did you tell your mother what really happened?" Emma shook her head violently. "Derek said if I ever told Mommy what he did, he'd hurt her worse. He said it would be my fault if something bad happened to her. He said little girls who tell lies about grown-ups get sent away to places where nobody wants them, where they live in cages like animals. Marcus felt sick. Derek Morrison had systematically terrorized a 6-year-old child into silence, isolating her from the one person who could protect her. "Emma, listen to me very carefully," Marcus said, moving closer. "Nothing that Derek does is your fault. Nothing. He's been lying to you because he knows that what he's doing is wrong and he doesn't want to get caught. But you're being so brave right now, telling me the truth. And Rex and I are going to make sure you and your mommy are safe. Do you believe me?" Emma looked at Rex, who licked her hand gently. "Rex told me you'd say that," she whispered. "At school, when I told him my secret, he told me, without words, but I could feel it, that help was coming, that I didn't have to be scared anymore." "Rex was right," Marcus said firmly. "Emma, I need to ask you something important. Did Derek ever touch you in places that made you uncomfortable? Did he ever hurt you in ways that weren't just grabbing your arms?" "He pushed me once," Emma said. "I fell and hit my head on the coffee table. He said I tripped over my own feet and that if I told Mommy, she wouldn't believe me anyway because I'm always making up stories." "Do you make up stories, Emma?" "No," the little girl said, her voice gaining strength. "I tell the truth. My teacher says I'm very honest, but Derek says I'm a liar. He says nobody will ever believe a weird little girl over a grown man." "I believe you," Marcus said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. "And your mother is going to believe you too. Emma, I'm going to go talk to your mom now, and then we're going to make sure Derek can't hurt either of you ever again. Is that okay?" Emma nodded, but her grip on Rex didn't loosen. "Can Rex stay with me while you talk to Mommy?" Marcus smiled. "Rex wouldn't have it any other way. He's your guardian now, Emma. He's not going to let anything happen to you." As if understanding every word, Rex shifted his position so that he was lying directly beside Emma on the bed, his large body a warm, protective presence. The little girl curled up against him, finally looking peaceful for the first time since Marcus had met her. Marcus stood, his hand moving instinctively to his radio. It was time to bring Derek Morrison's reign of terror to an end. And this time, thanks to one brave little girl and one extraordinary dog, they had everything they needed to make sure he'd never hurt anyone again. Marcus closed Emma's bedroom door gently behind him, leaving Rex to comfort the little girl who had finally found the courage to speak her truth. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from barely controlled rage. In his 12 years as a police officer, he'd seen the worst of humanity, but there was something particularly vile about a grown man terrorizing a child into silence while manipulating her mother. Sarah Patterson stood in the narrow hallway, her back pressed against the wall, her face pale with dread. She'd heard enough through the thin door to know that whatever Emma had told Officer Thompson, it wasn't good. "Ms. Patterson," Marcus said quietly, "we need to talk. Living room, please." Sarah's legs seemed to barely support her as she walked to the couch and sat down, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white. "She told you something bad, didn't she? About school? About bullying?" "No, ma'am," Marcus said, pulling out his notebook and taking a seat across from her. "She told me about Derek." The color drained completely from Sarah's face. "Derek? What about Derek?" Marcus took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Ms. Patterson, Emma disclosed that Derek has been physically abusive toward her. She described multiple incidents where he grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises, where he pushed her causing her to hit her head on furniture, and where he threatened her into staying silent about the abuse." "No," Sarah whispered, shaking her head. "No, that can't be right. Emma's just. She's been so confused lately, and Derek's been patient with her even though she's been difficult." "Sarah," Marcus interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. "Emma also disclosed that Derek has been abusive toward you. She witnessed him threatening you with a gun, heard him say he'd make you disappear if you tried to leave him. She saw him grab you hard enough to bruise your arm, and she's been carrying the guilt of thinking it's her fault that you're in this situation." Sarah's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes filled with tears that spilled down her cheeks in silent streams. Her whole body began to shake. "The bruises on Emma's arms," Marcus continued. "They're grip marks, Sarah, adult male grip marks. Your daughter has been suffering in silence for 2 months because Derek convinced her that if she told anyone, he'd hurt you worse. He told her it would be her fault if something happened to you. He told her that children who tell on adults get sent to places where they live in cages." "Oh my God," Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God, Emma, my baby, I didn't see it. How did I not see it?" "Derek is a practiced manipulator," Marcus said. "He isolated you, probably gradually, made you doubt yourself, made you think Emma's behavioral changes were just a phase. He convinced you that bruises were from clumsiness when he was the one causing them. This is what abusers do, they hide in plain sight." Sarah doubled over, sobbing so hard her entire body convulsed. "I brought him into our home. I let him near my daughter. What kind of mother does that? What kind of mother doesn't protect her own child?" "A mother who was also being abused," Marcus said gently. "Sarah, you're a victim too. Derek targeted you because he saw someone vulnerable, a single mother working 2 jobs, exhausted, probably lonely. He love-bombed you at first, didn't he? Made you feel special, wanted." Sarah nodded through her tears. "He was so charming at first. We met at the hospital where I work. He'd come in with a buddy who'd hurt himself on a construction site. Derek was attentive, sweet. He brought me coffee during my breaks, remembered little things I'd mentioned. After 2 months of dating, he said his lease was up and he couldn't find an affordable place. I offered to let him stay here temporarily and then he just never left." "And when did things change?" "Almost immediately after he moved in," Sarah admitted, her voice breaking. "He started criticizing everything, how I parented, how I kept house, how I spent money. He said I was lucky to have him because no other man would want a woman with so much baggage. I started to believe him. I worked nights, so I was always tired, and Emma was going through something I couldn't understand, and Derek kept saying I was failing at everything." "He was gaslighting you," Marcus said, "making you doubt your own reality, your own worth, and in the process he was abusing your daughter right under your nose." Sarah looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes full of anguish. The bruises, the behavioral changes, the way Emma flinched when Derek came into a room. I saw all of it and I explained it away because I was scared to see the truth. I was scared of being alone again, scared I couldn't make it without help with the bills, scared that maybe Derek was right and I was failing Emma on my own. "You're not failing her now," Marcus said firmly. "Right now, in this moment, you have a choice to make. You can protect your daughter and yourself, or you can continue to let Derek control your lives. What's it going to be?" Sarah stood up abruptly, her expression transforming from despair to fierce determination. "I want him gone. I want him arrested. I want him to never come near my daughter again. Tell me what I need to do." "First, I need you to give a statement about what you've witnessed, the threats, the gun, any violence you've experienced," Marcus said, pulling out his digital recorder. "Then I'm going to call Child Protective Services because that's protocol, but I'm also going to make sure they understand that you're cooperating fully and that you're taking immediate action to protect Emma. We're also going to get a restraining order filed today." "He has a gun," Sarah said suddenly, fear creeping into her voice. "Officer, if he finds out that Emma told, if he knows you've been here, he'll come back. He'll be furious." "Where's the gun now?" "I don't know. He usually keeps it in his truck, I think. But sometimes I've seen him put it in the bedroom closet." Marcus immediately radioed for backup. "I need units at Meadowbrook Estates. Apartment 2B. Suspect is Derek Morrison, armed and potentially dangerous. Domestic violence case involving a minor. I need someone here within 5 minutes." The radio crackled. "Copy that, Thompson. Units en route." Marcus turned back to Sarah. We're going to post an officer here while I go find Derek. Do you know where he might have gone? There's a bar he goes to sometimes, Murphy's Pub on Foster Avenue. And he has a friend named Carl who lives in the Jade District, but I don't know the exact address. That's enough, Marcus said. Sarah, I need you to pack bags for you and Emma. Essentials only, clothes, medications, important documents. I want you two out of here tonight. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay? My sister lives in Beaverton, Sarah said. We haven't talked much since Derek moved in. He said she was judgmental and didn't like him, but she'd take us in. I know she would. Call her right now, Marcus instructed. And Sarah, when Derek is arrested, he's going to try to call you. He's going to apologize, make promises, say he'll change. He might even threaten you. Do not answer those calls. Do not believe anything he says. Men like Derek don't change, they just get better at hiding what they are. Sarah nodded, pulling out her phone with trembling hands. Officer Thompson, thank you. Thank you for seeing what I was too blind to see. Thank you for believing Emma when I should have been the one protecting her all along. You're protecting her now, Marcus said. That's what matters. As Sarah made the call to her sister, Marcus checked on Emma. The little girl was asleep, curled up against Rex, her face finally peaceful. The German shepherd's eyes opened when Marcus entered, and in those intelligent eyes, Marcus saw something that looked almost like approval. Good work, partner, Marcus whispered. You saved her life today, you know that, right? Rex's tail wagged once, gently, careful not to disturb the sleeping child who had trusted him with her darkest secret. 20 minutes later, 2 patrol cars arrived. Marcus briefed the officers, left one to guard Sarah and Emma, and headed out with his partner to find Derek Morrison. The hunt was on, and Marcus had no intention of letting this predator escape justice. Emma had been brave enough to speak her truth. Now it was time to make sure that truth set her free. Marcus found Derek Morrison exactly where Sarah said he'd be, sitting at the far end of the bar at Murphy's Pub on Foster Avenue, nursing his 3rd beer and complaining loudly to the bartender about mouthy women and bratty kids. Marcus watched through the window for a moment, his hand resting on his service weapon, Rex alert and ready beside him. That's him, boy, Marcus said quietly. That's the man who hurt Emma. Rex's lips curled back slightly, revealing his teeth, a rare display of aggression that told Marcus exactly how the dog felt about Derek Morrison. Marcus called for backup before entering, and within minutes, 2 additional officers arrived. They entered Murphy's Pub together, the dim interior reeking of stale beer and cigarette smoke that had soaked into the walls despite the smoking ban. Derek sat at the bar, already 3 beers deep based on the empty bottles in front of him, laughing loudly at something the bartender had said. Derek Morrison, Marcus called out, his hand resting on his service weapon. Derek turned, his face flushing red when he saw the officers. What the hell? What are you doing here? Mr. Morrison, I need you to stand up slowly and put your hands where I can see them, Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had done this 1,000 times. What? Why? Derek stood up quickly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The other patrons in the bar turned to watch. I haven't done anything wrong. Derek Morrison, you're under arrest for assault, battery against a minor, domestic violence, and terroristic threatening, Marcus said, his hand moving to his service weapon as a precaution. Put your hands where I can see them. This is bullshit, Derek shouted, his face turning red. That little brat told lies about me, didn't she? I knew she would. I told Sarah that kid was nothing but trouble. Hands where I can see them now, Marcus commanded, his voice hardening to steel. Derek's face twisted with rage. That kid is a lying little. Finish that sentence and you'll regret it, Marcus cut him off, his hand moving to his service weapon. Hands where I can see them, now. For a moment, Derek looked like he might run. His eyes darted to the exit, calculating his chances. But Rex was already moving, positioning himself between Derek and the door, a low growl rumbling from his chest that promised pain if Derek tried anything stupid. "You're going to believe some kid over me," Derek sneered, but Marcus could see the fear flickering in his eyes. "That little brat is a liar, always has been. Ask anyone, she makes up stories for attention." "Save it for your lawyer," Marcus said, pulling out his handcuffs. "Derek Morrison, you're under arrest for assault on a minor, domestic violence, terroristic threatening, and unlawful possession of a firearm by someone with a domestic violence history. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Derek's face went from red to purple. "You can't arrest me. I didn't do anything. That kid is a liar, and Sarah put her up to this because she's crazy. Hands behind your back. Now." Marcus's voice carried the full weight of his authority, and Rex moved into position beside him, teeth bared in a warning growl. Derek's eyes darted to the exits, calculating. Marcus could see the wheels turning in the man's head, fight or flight. "Don't even think about it," Marcus warned. "You've got 2 officers behind you, I've got a trained attack dog, and you're already looking at assault on a minor, domestic violence, making terroristic threats, and unlawful possession if that gun in your truck isn't registered. Running will only add to your charges." Derek's shoulders sagged, and for a moment Marcus saw the mask slip. The charming facade that had fooled Sarah Patterson crumbled, revealing the coward underneath. "This is bullshit," Derek spat. "That kid's been lying about me since day one. Little brat's always trying to get me in trouble because she doesn't want me with her mom." "Shut your mouth," Marcus said coldly. "You have the right to remain silent, and I strongly suggest you use it." As Marcus read Derek his Miranda rights and placed him in handcuffs, the bartender approached with his phone out. "I recorded that whole thing," he said quietly. "The threats, the gun talk, everything. I was about to call 911 myself when you walked in." "I'm going to need that video," Marcus said. "Already sent it to my email. Happy to testify too. I've been bartending for 20 years, and I know a dangerous man when I see one." As Marcus led Derek out to the patrol car, the man still screaming threats and profanity, he thought about Emma sleeping peacefully against Rex, finally safe after 2 months of living in fear. They had him. Derek Morrison's reign of terror was over. But the real story was just beginning to unfold. Back at the apartment, Sarah had packed 2 large duffel bags with clothes, toiletries, and Emma's favorite stuffed animals. Her sister Michelle had been horrified by Sarah's tearful explanation over the phone and insisted they come immediately. "I knew something was wrong," Michelle had said. "I knew he was bad news, Sarah. I'm so sorry I didn't push harder." Officer Jennifer Hayes, the young patrol officer assigned to guard them, helped Sarah carry bags to the car while Emma clung to Rex in the living room. The little girl had woken up when the other officers arrived, scared by the commotion, but Rex had kept her calm. "When will Officer Thompson be back?" Emma asked, her voice small. "Is he going to catch Derek?" "He's going to make sure Derek can't hurt you anymore," Officer Hayes, the female officer staying with them, said gently. "You're very brave, Emma. What you did today, telling the truth, that took more courage than most adults have." Emma buried her face in Rex's fur. "I was scared, but Rex said I had to be brave. He said heroes are just regular people who do the right thing even when they're scared." Sarah, who had been packing bags in the bedroom, emerged with 2 duffel bags stuffed with clothes and essentials. Her eyes were still red from crying, but there was a steel in her expression that hadn't been there before. She'd made her choice, her daughter's safety over her own fear. "We're ready," Sarah said firmly. "My sister's expecting us. She's furious I didn't call her sooner, but she said we can stay as long as we need." "That's good," Officer Martinez, one of the backup officers, said. "We'll escort you there personally, make sure you arrive safely." Emma emerged from her bedroom, Rex at her side, her small hand gripping his collar. She changed into pajamas, a worn set with cartoon puppies on them, and clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something different about her now. Something lighter. "Mommy," Emma's voice was small but clear. "Are we really leaving? Is Derek really going away?" Sarah knelt down and pulled her daughter into a fierce embrace, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, baby, yes. We're leaving, and Derek is never, ever going to hurt you again. I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you." "It's okay, Mommy," Emma whispered, her small arms wrapping around her mother's neck. "You didn't know. He was really good at pretending to be nice when you were watching." Sarah sobbed, holding her daughter tightly. "I should have known, I should have seen it. Baby, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Marcus watched the reunion, feeling his throat tighten with emotion. This was why he'd become a cop, moments like this, where justice could still be served, where victims could be saved before it was too late. His radio crackled. "Thompson, we've got eyes on the suspect. Murphy's Pub on Foster. He's inside, vehicle in the parking lot, requesting backup before approach." "Copy that," Marcus responded, his adrenaline spiking. "I'm 10 minutes out. Do not engage until I arrive. Suspect is armed and dangerous." Marcus turned to Sarah, who had overheard the radio chatter. "They found him. I need to go, but Officer Martinez will stay here with you and Emma. Pack those bags and call your sister. I want you both out of here within the hour." "What happens now?" Sarah asked, her voice small and frightened. "Now Derek Morrison learns that you don't terrorize children and get away with it," Marcus said, heading for the door. "Rex, let's go, partner." The German Shepherd reluctantly left Emma's side, following Marcus to the patrol car. As they drove toward Murphy's Pub, Marcus's mind raced through the scenarios. Derek was armed, probably drinking, and would be volatile when confronted. This had all the makings of a dangerous arrest. But Marcus had dealt with dangerous men before. And this time, he had something they didn't: righteous fury on behalf of a 6-year-old girl who deserved so much better than what life had dealt her. Murphy's Pub was a dive bar on Foster Avenue, the kind of place with neon beer signs in the windows and motorcycles parked out front. 2 patrol cars were already positioned at either end of the parking lot, waiting for Marcus's arrival. He pulled in and immediately spotted Derek's truck, a beat-up Ford F-150 with construction equipment in the bed. Sergeant Patricia Okonkwo approached Marcus's vehicle, her expression grim. "He's inside, sitting at the bar. We've had eyes on him through the window. Appears to be alone, working on his 4th beer. The bartender says he's been getting increasingly agitated, muttering to himself." "He knows something's wrong," Marcus said. "Maybe Sarah tried to call him, or maybe he just senses it. Either way, he's going to be unpredictable." "We go in quiet," Patricia instructed. "No sirens, no drama. We approach calmly, inform him he's under arrest, and we do this by the book. I don't want this case thrown out on a technicality." Marcus nodded, checking his service weapon and adjusting his vest. Rex stood at attention in the back seat, sensing the tension. "Rex stays in the car for now," Marcus said. "I don't want him in the line of fire if this goes sideways." "Smart," Patricia agreed. "All right, let's move." The 5 officers entered Murphy's Pub in a coordinated formation, their presence immediately drawing the attention of the dozen patrons scattered throughout the dark interior. Derek Morrison sat hunched over the bar, a nearly empty beer glass in front of him, his body language radiating barely contained rage. He must have seen their reflections in the mirror behind the bar, because he spoke without turning around. "Let me guess," Derek said, his voice thick with alcohol and contempt. "Sarah called the cops. That stupid bitch actually grew a spine." "Derek Morrison," Marcus said, his voice carrying authority through the quiet bar, "you're under arrest for assault on a minor, domestic violence, and terroristic threatening. Put your hands where I can see them and stand up slowly." Derek laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Assault on a minor? That brat told you I hit her. She's a liar. always has been making up stories for attention. Hans Morrison, now. And what if I say no? Derek spun around on his bar stool, his eyes wild and unfocused. His hand moved toward his waistband, and every officer in the room drew their weapon in a synchronized motion. "Don't do it," Patricia commanded. "Don't make this worse than it already is." For a long, tense moment, Derek's hand hovered near his waistband. Marcus could see the calculation in the man's eyes, the weighing of options, the consideration of violence. But Derek Morrison was ultimately a coward who preyed on women and children because he knew they couldn't fight back. 5 armed police officers were a different story. "Fine," Derek spat, raising his hands. "But this is bullshit. That kid is lying, and you're all going to look like idiots when this falls apart in court." As Patricia and another officer moved to cuff Derek, Marcus stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Emma Patterson is 6 years old, and she's been carrying bruises you gave her and secrets you forced her to keep. But today, a dog saw what you are, and a little girl found her courage. You're done terrorizing that family, Morrison. Done." Derek's face twisted with rage as the handcuffs clicked into place. "This isn't over. I'll be out in 24 hours, and Sarah will take me back because she's got nowhere else to turn. That kid will learn to keep her mouth shut, one way or—" Marcus's fist connected with the wall beside Derek's head, the impact echoing through the bar. "You listen to me," Marcus growled. "You go near that woman or her daughter again, and I will dedicate every waking moment to making sure you never see the outside of a prison cell. Are we clear?" Derek said nothing, but the fear that flickered across his face told Marcus everything he needed to know. As they led Derek out to the patrol car, Marcus pulled out his phone and texted Sarah. "He's in custody. You and Emma are safe now." The response came seconds later. "Thank you. We're at my sister's. Emma asked me to tell Rex thank you for believing her." Marcus smiled, looking at his partner through the patrol car window. Rex sat alert and proud, as if he knew that today he'd done more than just his job. He'd saved a life. And sometimes that made all the difference. 3 days after Derek Morrison's arrest, Mrs. Linda Chen sat in her office at Riverside Elementary, staring at her computer screen with tears streaming down her face. The video had only been online for 6 hours, but it already had over 2 million views and climbing. It had started innocently enough. After Emma's disclosure, Linda had asked Sarah for permission to share their story, names changed, of course, in the school's monthly newsletter. She wanted parents to understand the signs of child abuse, to know that withdrawn behavior wasn't always just a phase. Sarah, still reeling from the revelations about Derek but determined to help other families, had agreed. But then Jamie Rodriguez, a reporter from Portland's KOIN News, had been volunteering at the school that week for a story on literacy programs. She'd overheard teachers discussing Emma's case in hushed, emotional tones. When Jamie approached Linda about doing a segment on recognizing child abuse, Linda saw an opportunity to spread awareness beyond their small community. Sarah had surprised everyone by agreeing to tell their story publicly. No anonymity, no hiding. "If my face and name can help even one other mother see what I missed," Sarah had said, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes, "then it's worth it. I was blind, but I won't let my shame keep other children in danger." The news segment had aired on Wednesday evening. Jamie Rodriguez had done a beautiful job, showing B-roll footage of Riverside Elementary, interviewing Linda about warning signs, and featuring emotional interviews with both Sarah and Officer Marcus Thompson. But the moment that captured hearts around the world came at the end. Jamie had arranged for Emma and Rex to reunite at the school playground for the segment. The cameras were rolling as Marcus walked Rex onto the playground where Emma waited on that same wooden bench where they'd first met. The little girl's face had transformed, from hollow-eyed and haunted to radiant with joy, the moment she saw the German Shepherd. "Rex," Emma had cried, running toward him. The video showed Rex pulling forward eagerly, his tail wagging with such force his entire body shook. When Emma reached him, she dropped to her knees and threw her arms around his neck. The German Shepherd had gently licked away the tears streaming down her face, whimpering softly as if he, too, had missed her desperately. "He told me I was brave," Emma had said to the camera, her small voice clear and strong. "He told me without words. He heard what I couldn't say out loud, and he made sure someone listened." Then Emma had looked directly into the camera with those big, expressive eyes. "If you're scared like I was, tell someone. Tell a teacher. Tell a dog. Tell anybody who will listen. Because bad people want you to stay quiet, and brave people know that asking for help isn't weak. It's the strongest thing you can do." The video had ended with Emma hugging Rex one more time, whispering, "Thank you for saving me," while Marcus stood nearby, openly crying behind his sunglasses. That video had gone viral. By Thursday morning, it had 15 million views across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. By Friday afternoon, it was approaching 30 million. News outlets from CNN to BBC to Al Jazeera were requesting interviews. The hashtag #BeLikeRex was trending worldwide, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of abuse, survival, and the animals who had helped them through dark times. "Oh my God," Linda whispered, scrolling through the comments section. There were tens of thousands of them. "I'm sitting at my desk sobbing. This dog is a hero. I was that little girl 30 years ago. No one believed me. Thank God Emma had Rex. Animals know, they just know. Dogs can sense evil. Sharing this with every parent I know. Please, please watch for the signs. That little girl's courage just saved my daughter. I've been making excuses for my boyfriend's behavior. Not anymore." The last comment made Linda's throat tighten with emotion. This was why they'd gone public. This was why Sarah had been willing to expose her own mistakes to save other children. Linda's phone rang. It was Marcus Thompson. "Have you seen it?" Marcus asked, his voice filled with wonder. "Linda, we're getting calls from across the country. Police departments want to implement K-9 programs specifically trained to identify traumatized children. The Portland police chief wants to name it Rex's Rangers." "Marcus, it's bigger than that," Linda said, pulling up another article. The National Domestic Violence Hotline reported a 340% increase in calls since the video aired. Organizations are offering free therapy to abuse survivors. Corporate sponsors are lining up to fund programs. This isn't just going viral, it's starting a movement. "Emma started a movement," Marcus corrected. "That little girl's courage is changing the world." At Michelle's house in Beaverton, Sarah sat on the couch with Emma curled up beside her, watching the video for what must have been the 100th time. Emma insisted on watching it repeatedly, as if she couldn't quite believe that her story, her pain, her fear, her survival, mattered to anyone. "Mommy, look," Emma said, pointing at the screen. "That comment says I helped her daughter. Did I really help someone?" Sarah pulled Emma closer, kissing the top of her head. "Baby, you've helped thousands of people, maybe millions. You were so brave, and now other kids who are scared like you will know that they can be brave too." Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. "Is Derek still in jail?" "Yes," Sarah said firmly. "And he's going to stay there for a very long time. The prosecutor said that with your testimony, the evidence, and the threats he made, he's looking at years in prison." "Good," Emma said simply. Then more quietly, "Mommy, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was so scared." Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes again. She'd cried more in the past 3 days than she had in her entire life. "Emma, you have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. I'm the one who's sorry. I brought him into our home. I should have protected you better." "But you're protecting me now," Emma said, with the simple wisdom only children possess. "And that's what heroes do. They make mistakes and then they fix them." Sarah's phone buzzed. Another message in the endless stream that had been pouring in since the video went viral. This one was from an organization called Hope for Tomorrow, a trauma therapy center in Portland. Ms. Patterson, we saw Emma's story. We would like to offer both you and your daughter 12 months of free trauma counseling with our best therapists. What your family has been through requires professional support, and we want to help. Please call us. Sarah showed the message to Michelle, who was cooking dinner in the kitchen. Another one offering help, Sarah said, overwhelmed. There have been dozens. Therapy offers, legal aid, even job offers from companies who want to support us. That's what happens when people see real courage, Michelle said, stirring a pot of soup. They want to be part of the solution. You and Emma did something extraordinary. You turned your worst experience into hope for others. The doorbell rang and Michelle went to answer it. A delivery person stood there with an enormous box. Delivery for Emma Patterson. They brought the box inside, and Emma's eyes went wide when they opened it. Inside were hundreds of stuffed dogs, German shepherds of every size, sent by people from around the world who had been moved by her story. There were letters too, thousands of them, from children and adults alike. Emma pulled out a letter and Sarah read it aloud. Dear Emma, I am 8 years old and my stepfather was mean to me too. I was too scared to tell anyone, but when I saw you be brave, I told my teacher. They helped me just like they helped you. Thank you for being brave enough for both of us. Love, Jessica. Sarah's voice broke as she finished reading. Emma clutched the letter to her chest, understanding for the first time the true weight of what she'd done. Mommy, Emma said softly, Rex told me something else. That day on the playground. What did he tell you, baby? He told me that one person being brave can help lots of other people be brave too. Like lighting candles. One candle can light 100 candles, and then those candles can light 100 more, until the whole world is bright instead of dark. Sarah pulled her daughter close, marveling at the profound wisdom coming from someone so small. Rex was right, baby. You lit a candle and look how bright the world is getting. That evening, Marcus received a call from Portland's police chief, Raymond Walsh. Thompson, I need you and Rex at City Hall tomorrow morning. The mayor wants to give Rex a commendation. First K-9 officer in Portland history to receive the Community Hero Award. Rex will be honored, Chief, Marcus said, scratching his partner's ears. The German shepherd's tail wagged, sensing his handler's pride. There's more, Chief Walsh continued. We've received over $500,000 in donations to start the Rex's Rangers program. We're going to train K-9 units specifically to identify children in distress. School visits will be mandatory, and we're developing protocols for recognizing signs of abuse that even trained counselors miss. Thompson, your dog just revolutionized how police departments across the country are going to approach child welfare. Marcus looked at Rex, who gazed back with those intelligent, knowing eyes. He's just doing what he's always done, Chief, protecting those who can't protect themselves. Well, he's damn good at it. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring Emma if Sarah's willing. The press is going to be there, but I think the world needs to see that little girl and her hero dog together one more time. The next morning, City Hall was packed. News cameras from around the world jostled for position as Emma, Sarah, Marcus, and Rex arrived. Emma wore a new purple dress, her favorite color, and held her mother's hand tightly, intimidated by the crowd. But when Emma saw Rex, everything else faded away. She ran to him, and the German shepherd greeted her with the same gentle enthusiasm as always, his tail wagging, his body wiggling with joy. Mayor Catherine Henderson approached the podium, her eyes glistening with emotion. Today, we honor an extraordinary hero, not just Rex, whose instincts and compassion saved a child's life, but Emma Patterson, whose courage in speaking her truth has sparked a national conversation about protecting our most vulnerable citizens. The crowd erupted in applause. Emma buried her face in Rex's fur, overwhelmed but smiling. Rex has been awarded Portland's first K-9 Community Hero Medal, the mayor continued, and the Rex's Rangers program will begin training next month. Emma, would you like to present Rex with his medal?" Emma nodded, stepping forward. Someone handed her a beautiful medal on a blue ribbon, a gold shield with a dog's paw print in the center. With shaking hands, Emma placed it around Rex's neck. "Thank you for hearing what I couldn't say," Emma whispered to the dog, her voice breaking. "Thank you for making me brave." Rex licked her cheek, and the crowd, 2,000 strong, erupted in applause and tears. In that moment, surrounded by love and validation, Emma Patterson understood something profound. Her pain had purpose, her courage had power, and her voice, once silenced by fear, had just changed the world. 1 year later, Emma Patterson stood backstage at Portland City Hall Auditorium, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the note cards she'd practiced reading 100 times. She wore a blue dress her Aunt Michelle had helped her pick out, and her hair was braided with small purple ribbons, her signature color, as the media had come to call it. At 7 years old, Emma was about to address 2,000 people, and she was terrified. But then she felt a warm nose press against her palm, and all her fear melted away. "Rex," she whispered, kneeling down to hug the German shepherd who had become so much more than just a police dog. "What if I mess up? What if I forget what to say?" Rex gazed at her with those impossibly understanding brown eyes and licked her cheek gently. Officer Marcus Thompson knelt beside them, placing a reassuring hand on Emma's shoulder. "You know what Rex just told me," Marcus said with a warm smile. "He said that the bravest thing you ever did wasn't speaking on stages or doing interviews. It was trusting him that day on the playground when you felt completely alone. Everything else after that was just you being the amazing person you've always been." Emma smiled, her confidence returning. Did he really say that? "Every word," Marcus confirmed, though they both knew Rex communicated in ways that transcended language. The past year had been transformative, not just for Emma and her mother, but for countless families across the nation. The video of Emma and Rex had ultimately reached over 50 million views worldwide. What started as one little girl's story of survival had ignited a movement that was changing how society recognized and responded to child abuse. Sarah Patterson, now working as a patient advocate at Providence Hospital with regular hours and no night shifts, peeked backstage. "Emma, baby, they're ready for you. But you don't have to do this if you don't want to. We can leave right now." "No, Mommy," Emma said, standing tall. "I want to do this. Other kids need to hear that it gets better, that being scared doesn't mean you have to stay quiet." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, the good kind this time. Her daughter, who had been so broken and silent a year ago, was now a beacon of hope for thousands of children living in fear. Therapy had helped both of them heal, and Sarah had learned that forgiving herself for her mistakes was part of that healing process. She'd started a support group for mothers who'd missed the signs of abuse, creating a safe space where women could share their guilt and find redemption through action. Derek Morrison had pleaded guilty to multiple charges: assault on a minor, domestic violence, making terroristic threats, and unlawful possession of a firearm. His lawyer had advised against going to trial after seeing the overwhelming evidence, including Emma's testimony, Sarah's statement, the bartender's video, and witness accounts from neighbors who'd heard his threats. He was sentenced to 12 years in state prison, with a permanent restraining order ensuring he could never contact Sarah or Emma again. The day the sentence was handed down, Emma had squeezed Rex's collar and whispered, "We won." Now, as Mayor Catherine Henderson took the podium, the audience quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen, 1 year ago, a 6-year-old girl found the courage to share her truth with a dog who refused to ignore her pain. Today, that courage has blossomed into something extraordinary." The mayor gestured to a large screen behind her, which displayed statistics that made the audience gasp. Rex's Rangers program active in 47 states. 2,847 K-9 officers trained in trauma recognition. National Child Abuse Hotline calls increased 340%. 15,000 plus children removed from dangerous situations. $12 million raised for child advocacy programs. Emma Patterson and Rex didn't just save one life, Mayor Henderson continued, her voice thick with emotion. They saved thousands, and today we're here to celebrate not just their heroism, but the ongoing impact of their story. Emma stepped onto the stage, Rex walking confidently beside her, his medal gleaming on his collar. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted nearly 3 minutes. Emma saw familiar faces in the crowd, Mrs. Chen from school, her Aunt Michelle, the officers who had helped arrest Derek, and dozens of children wearing purple ribbons in solidarity. But what made Emma's heart swell were the signs people held up. Emma gave me courage to tell thank you. Rex saved my daughter. One brave girl equals one changed world. Be like Rex, be like Emma. When the applause finally died down, Emma approached the microphone. Her voice wavered at first, then grew stronger with each word. My name is Emma Patterson, and I'm 7 years old. A year ago, I was the most scared I've ever been in my whole life. Someone who was supposed to be nice was being mean to me and my mommy, and I didn't know what to do. I thought if I told anyone, something even worse would happen. Emma paused, her hand finding Rex's head. The dog sat perfectly still beside her, his presence giving her strength. But then I met Rex, Emma continued, her voice clearer now. He's a police dog, which means he's really smart and brave, but he's also something else. He's someone who listens with his heart instead of just his ears. When Rex found me on the playground that day, I was so sad and scared that I couldn't even cry anymore. I felt empty, like all the light inside me had gone out. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Rex didn't need me to talk to know I was hurting. He just knew. And when I whispered my secret to him, the secret I was too scared to tell anyone else, he didn't judge me. He didn't tell me I was lying or making things up. He just believed me. And that belief made me brave enough to tell the truth to Officer Marcus, and the truth set me and my mommy free. Emma pulled out her note cards, but she didn't need them anymore. The words were coming from her heart. A lot of people call me brave now, but I don't think I'm special. I think every single kid who's scared right now is brave, because getting through each day when you're scared is the hardest thing in the world. If you're that kid, if you're scared of someone at home or at school or anywhere, I want you to know something Rex taught me. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak. Being scared means you're smart enough to know when something's wrong. And asking for help isn't giving up. It's the bravest thing you can ever do. Emma's voice grew stronger, more confident. Since Rex and Officer Marcus helped me, thousands of other kids have found their courage too. That's what happens when one person is brave. It helps other people be brave too. It's like Rex told me. One candle can light 1,000,000 candles, and suddenly the whole world is brighter. Emma knelt down beside Rex, wrapping her arms around his neck one more time. Thank you, Rex, for hearing what I couldn't say out loud. Thank you for making me feel safe when I felt so alone. Thank you for showing me that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear fur and have really wet noses. The audience laughed through their tears. And thank you, Officer Marcus, for believing Rex when he knew something was wrong. Thank you, Mommy, for being brave enough to choose me over being scared. Thank you, Aunt Michelle, for always being there. Thank you to all the police officers and teachers and therapists who help kids like me every single day. Emma stood up, addressing the crowd with a clarity that belied her 7 years. If you're a kid who's scared, tell someone. Tell a teacher, tell a friend, tell a dog if that's all you can do. Just tell somebody, because you deserve to be safe and happy and free. And if you're a grown-up, please listen. Listen with your heart like Rex does. Sometimes the quietest kids are the ones screaming the loudest inside. She paused, looking directly into the cameras broadcasting her speech around the world. Bad people want you to stay quiet because silence protects them. But brave people know that speaking up, even when your voice shakes, even when you're terrified, that's how we stop bad people from hurting anyone else. So be brave, be loud, be like Rex, never ignore someone who needs help. The audience erupted into applause, but this time it was different. It was the sound of hope, of healing, of a world that was finally listening to its most vulnerable voices. Mayor Henderson stepped forward with a framed certificate. Emma, on behalf of the city of Portland and cities across America, I present you with the Citizen Courage Award. You are the youngest recipient in history, and you have earned it 1,000 times over. Emma accepted the certificate, but then she did something that made everyone in the room fall silent. She took the medal from around Rex's neck and held it up to the audience. "This medal belongs to Rex," Emma said firmly. "But Rex told me something important. Heroes don't do brave things for medals. They do brave things because someone needs help, and helping people is what makes life worth living. So I'm going to keep this medal not for me, but for every kid who's still finding their courage. This medal is for the kids who are scared right now, to remind them that they're not alone and that help is coming. You just have to be brave enough to reach for it." Marcus stepped forward, openly crying now, and placed his hand on Emma's shoulder. "You know what, Emma? I think Rex would agree with that completely." As flashbulbs popped and cameras rolled, Emma knelt one more time and hugged Rex with all her strength. "I love you," she whispered into his fur. "You saved my life, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping other kids like you helped me." Rex's tail wagged, that same enthusiastic, full-body wag that had first brought hope to a terrified little girl on a playground 1 year ago. And in that moment, everyone watching understood the profound truth at the heart of Emma's story. Sometimes salvation comes not with grand gestures or dramatic rescues, but with one soul recognizing another's pain and refusing to look away. Sometimes a hero is simply someone who chooses to care when it would be easier not to. And sometimes, the most powerful force in the world is the unconditional love of a dog who knew that a little girl needed saving. Emma Patterson and Rex had reminded the world of something beautiful and true, that courage is contagious, that compassion can change everything, and that no one, absolutely no one, should ever have to suffer in silence. The bond between a little girl and a police dog had changed thousands of lives, and it would continue changing lives for years to come. Because that's what happens when someone finally hears what you couldn't say out loud. It doesn't just save you. It saves everyone who comes after you. The end.